Before we get started, there will be some spoilers for the remainder of the 1000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach in the video to come. Who is the strongest vice captain as of the Hell arc of Bleach? While the ending of the 1000-Year Blood War arc left the holders of a few of the vice captain spots in the newest iteration of the Gotei 13 unclear, 2021's Hell chapter made sure to explicitly reveal the remainder, meaning we once again have a full slate of a minimum of 13 vice captains for really the first time since, well, the start of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, after which it very quickly went a bit pear-shaped for them. But in total, at least by my count, there are currently a whopping 15 vice captains serving in the Gotei 13 by the start of the Hell arc. And today, we're going to try and rank all of them from weakest to strongest. Now, admittedly, where several of these characters are concerned, that might be a tad difficult, but as always, we'll try and take a holistic approach to this ranking, taking into account everything we know about each of them, however little that may be in some cases. It's been said before, even on this very channel, that the Gotei 13 of the Hell arc is perhaps looking to be the single weakest iteration of the Gotei 13 yet. So, how are things looking for the vice captains, all things considered? Let's dive in and get this ranking underway. Before we get started on the video, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, consider doing so now to help push this channel to its next major milestone. It is quick and easy to do, and it makes the world of difference. And also, if you haven't yet checked out my other channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games, again, your support would be greatly appreciated over there in helping to get that channel up and off the ground. Again, it does mean the absolute world to me, so thank you all so very much for your continued support. Now, obviously, when it comes to the lower end of this list, well, things are a bit murky in regards to how powerful these characters are, since we know very little about what they can actually do. And so it's probably an understatement to say we've not got a lot to go on here. As a result, I've had to take some creative liberties, but hopefully you can see where I'm coming from with each placement. And kicking things off in 15th place, we have the Vice Captain of Squad 13, Sentaro Kotsubaki, who was promoted to the position in the aftermath of the Quincy Blood War. For the majority of the series, we've only known Sentaro as the bumbling co-third seat of the 13th Division along with his partner in the role, Kiyone Kotetsu, and the two of them were little more than a comedic duo. Now though, in the wake of Rukia's promotion to captain, Sentaro has had to step up into the role of vice captain, which definitely feels like it brings with it some real weight. Sentaro, however, comes in at last on this list because we really don't know anything about him or what he can do. He's never exhibited any kind of skill in the Shinigami combat arts aside from pretty basic shunpo, and we don't have a clue what his Zanpakuto can do. The closest Sentaro ever comes to combat is when Soifon instantly defeats him in the Soul Society arc, and when Lil Barrow snipes him from afar in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, so he doesn't have the best track record. Here's hoping that if the Hell arc ever materializes, Sentaro will finally get the chance to prove his worth. Perhaps unsurprisingly then, following hot on Sentaro's heels, we have the new Vice Captain of the 4th Division, Kiyone Kotetsu, who, as I mentioned, previously shared the 13th Division's 3rd seat position with Sentaro, before transferring to the 4th Division to serve under her sister Isane, the new captain, after the battle with the Vandenreich. Much like Sentaro before her, Kiyone is another character from whom we've seen practically nothing, as she mostly acts as a comic foil to Sentaro during their limited screen time. And again, in terms of combat ability, Kiyone suffers the exact same fate as Sentaro as well, being brutally beaten by Soifon before being shot through the chest by Lil much later. That being said, I've elected to place Kiyone above Sentaro for now, for the simple fact that she's apparently capable of being the vice captain of the 4th Division specifically, which implies that she is considerably skilled in Kido. As we discussed in our latest Club Outside Q&A roundup, being in the 4th division seems to come with a requirement that you are skilled at Kido, as being proficient in Kaido, the healing branch, is a talent reserved for only a few. Unless she's now the vice captain purely on the basis that the new captain is her sister, but surely the Gotei 13 can't be that nepotistic, right? Next up is another really tricky one, and that's the co-vice captain of the 1st Division, Genshiro Okikiba, who is another character that we've seen absolutely nothing from. There's a definite trend here at the bottom of the list. Introduced in the Thousand Year Blood War arc as the 3rd seat of the division, Okikiba was the most senior, surviving member of the division in the wake of the first invasion, following the deaths of head captain Yamamoto and vice captain Sasakibe. He was then granted the position of co-vice captain under Kyoraku's new leadership, alongside Kyoraku's original vice captain, Nanao, and the two now work together managing the division's affairs. Okikiba has always felt like a weird character to me, and I've never been quite sure why he was even introduced in the first place, and I'm even more surprised that he's still around today. That being said, I've ranked him above both Sentaro and Kione for a couple of reasons, and this is where it feels like I'm probably taking the most liberties. But I feel like being the 3rd seat of the 1st division, especially under Yamamoto, comes with some level of baked-in prestige, and Yamamoto entrusted Okikiba with protecting the barracks during the initial battle against the Sternritter. Not only that, but Okikiba somehow miraculously survived Yhwach obliterating those same barracks shortly after, so there must be something going on there. Like I said, this is a tough one. It's possible we'll learn that he is maybe much stronger than this, and deserves to be ranked even higher, but for now I'm happy with where Okikiba sits. And up next we have the new vice captain of the 12th division, it's my boy Akon. I was so happy to see Akon promoted to the position of vice captain after Nemu's death in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. But once again, the reality is that for as cool as Akon is, we know very little about what he's capable of. So why does he rank higher than the characters that have come before on the list? Is it purely because I'm biased towards him? Yeah, maybe, but there are also a couple of points that can be made in his favour. For starters, as Mayuri's long-standing, long-suffering research assistant, there's no doubt that Akon is one of the Gotei 13's most hyper-intelligent individuals. Akon has been by Mayuri's side for over 100 years, researching and experimenting on the Quincy and even helping to create Nemu. While not as intelligent as Mayuri, Akon has proven himself to be one of the few characters both daring and sneaky enough to circumvent the mad scientist on numerous occasions, also earning the captain's rare respect. Thanks to the Hell chapter, we have actually seen Akon fight, albeit very briefly, and unsurprisingly he does battle in a peculiar way. Akon wears his vice captain's badge on a sash around his neck, and also dangling from that same sash are several vials of liquid. In battle against one of the Hell Hollows, Akon is able to instantly disintegrate the Hollow's legs simply by using one of the vials in his possession, defeating it immediately. I've always got the impression that, at least since the Thousand Year Blood War arc, Kubo quite likes Akon, so I'd expect to see more from him should the Hell arc continue. Up next we have one of the brand new vice captains revealed in the Hell chapter, the vice captain of the 8th division, Yu Yayahara, who again we just don't know much about. Ironically though, we probably know more about what Yu is capable of than we do almost all of the characters that came before on this list, despite them existing for years longer than her, simply due to the fact that we know what Yu Shikai is and seemingly can do, at least on the surface. Although we don't know its name or release commander yet, Yu Shikai takes the form of her painted fingernails, and when battling the Hell Hollows, Yu brings her hands together in the form of a pair of jaws, with which she then effortlessly bites through the gigantic creatures. When fighting the Hollows, Yu Yu conjures the image of a colossal bear behind her, reflected in the massive chunk of flesh that she then proceeds to rip out of the Hollow. Considering the speed at which she's able to move and how easily she's able to decapitate the Hollow, her Shikai is clearly quite effective. But then again, it's not exactly unusual for a Shinigami of Vice Captain level to be able to kill a Hollow with even just their sealed sword, so perhaps this isn't all that impressive. Or at least it's not indicative of much. But it's all we have to go on right now, so I'm happy to place Yu Yu here on the list. Okay, so in 10th place, it only seemed right to include the other brand new Vice Captain of the Hell chapter, the Vice Captain of Squad 7, Atao Rindo, who I definitely foresee becoming something of a fan favourite in the future if he's given the chance to. Again, like with Yu Yu before him, we don't get to see much from Atao, but he also reveals his Shikai. And the reason I've tentatively placed him above Yu Yu on this list is because based on what little we've seen from them both, Atao's Shikai has a lot more potential, again at least on the surface. As a Shinigami who is seemingly both deaf and mute, Atao cannot speak his Zanpakuto's release command. Instead, he writes it upon the blade, transforming the sword into a chain of talismans linked together like a whip. Interestingly though, Atao's Zanpakuto doesn't appear to have an actual name. Instead, Atao can sign the name of a particular creature, and the talismans will then become said creature. In the example we see in the Hell chapter, after activating his Shikai, Atao signs the word Hawk, and as a result, the talismans of his Zanpakuto transform into a flock of hawks, all of which then strip his opposing Hell Hollow down to the bone. So it seems to me like Atao can probably sign any manner of creature into existence, though of course we don't know that for sure. It's totally possible his Zanpakuto can only conjure different types of birds, though Atao himself has already been shown to be very in tune with nature, including a wide variety of wildlife and animals, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had access to much more than that. Anyway, until we learn more, for now I'm happy to place him at 10th on the list. And perhaps fittingly, it's here, as we enter the single-digit rankings, that we start to reach the Vice Captain with whom we actually have some familiarity, some experience. And so in 9th place, we have the Vice Captain of Squad 2, Morechio Omaida, who has done a lot of growing up over the course of the series. Despite his once piggish and boorish attitude, Omaida has come a long way, and in the Thousand Year Blood War arc stood proudly shoulder to shoulder with his captain when battling the terrifying Sternritter. Despite that, Omaida is still lacking in many major ways. Gagetsuburi is one of Bleach's most basic Shikai, simply transforming his Zanpakuto into a spiked flail with no other abilities to speak of, and Omaida himself is, by his own admission, terrible at Kido as well. Honestly, Omaida is only really above Yu Yu and Atao because we have seen him in battle many times. And like I said, he has grown in various different ways too. While he is, truthfully, lacking in most areas of Shinigami combat, Omaida is particularly skilled in Shunpo, enabling him to surprise and defeat one of Baragon's Fraction, as well as later rescue a defeated Soifon from right under BG9's nose, so to speak. Not only that, but Omaida has displayed impressive fortitude as well, shrugging off BG9's brutal assault, and later even carrying Soifon and his sister while heavily wounded himself. While it's absolutely possible that Omaida might continue to fall down the list in the future, for now, this seems totally fair. I'll be honest, I really wasn't sure what to do in regards to the following two entries, but in 8th place, I've decided to rank the other co-vice captain of Squad 1, Nanao Issei, who is by far the greatest Kido expert among the vice captaincy right now. Capable of fashioning her own Kido spells on the back of very little data, even able to create a spell strong enough to repel the Sternritter Grand Master, Ugram Hashwolf, simply by having access to some lingering Quincy Reiatsu, Nanao is a master of her craft. She's also able to come up with and create new, multifaceted spells on the fly, demonstrating both her skill and her intellect. And yet, in the same way, she believes that she was only given the position of vice captain due to her skill with the demon arts. I too am only really ranking her this highly because of that fact. Unfortunately for Nanao, the truth is she doesn't have a lot else going on. Due to being sheltered by Kyoraku for her entire life as an officer, Nanao has little to no combat experience whatsoever, only being cut and wounded for the very first time in her short-lived fight with Leal. And I don't think her ceremonial Zanpakuto, the Shinken Hakyoken, can really factor into this ranking much at all. Sure, she was able to use it to shatter Leal and disperse his godly power, but it's so absurdly situational that it's barely a consideration. As a result, Nanao works best in a supportive role, where she can really flex her Kido prowess. In 7th place, we have the current vice captain of the 5th division, Hinomori Momo. Another character who, like Omaida, has been through an awful lot of growth over the years. Hinomori's greatest skill is her Kido proficiency, and we've seen her pulling off impressive Kido feats in the midst of battle, including combining various different spells and spell types to land a huge hit on Harabel's Trebestia during the Rankar arc, and wielding Kido in conjunction with her Zanpakuto on the fly to adapt to difficult battle situations, such as against Gerard Valkyrie, while being unable to create a foothold in the air thanks to the dense reishi of Varvelt. Speaking of Hinomori's Zanpakuto, well, I've personally never found TYBW to be all that impressive. As a Zanpakuto, it isn't that versatile. Hinomori can conjure explosive fireballs from the blade itself, and, well, that's about it. No, the true usefulness of TYBW is found in how smartly Hinomori utilizes it in battle, and how she incorporates it into her strategies. Hinomori is also skilled in Kaido, which, as mentioned during Kyone's segment, is impressive and indicative of a real talent in spellcasting. And then of course there's Hinomori's legendary endurance. While something of a meme within the community, I guess we can't really ignore the fact that she is seemingly capable of surviving completely fatal situations and attacks, which is mostly just a testament to how much she suffered over the course of the first half of the series. Okay, and just missing out on the top 5, we have the vice captain of the 10th division, Rangiku Matsumoto, a character whose true potential will likely never be realised, thanks to an unfortunate combination of her own personality failings, and the fact that Aizen robbed her of a piece of her soul, likely forever stunting her growth. Despite that, Rangiku is one of the most balanced and well-rounded fighters on this list, displaying an aptitude for all areas of the combat arts. While I've personally never been too impressed with Hineko as a Zanpakuto, there's no denying Rangiku is skilled in her ability to wield her Ashen Blade effectively, utilising Hineko both offensively and defensively to great effect, even using it to take on multiple powerful opponents at once. Rangiku comes across as something of a jack-of-all-trades character. We've spent a lot of time with her in battles throughout the series, and as a result, we've seen a wide variety of Rangiku's skills. She's fast, she's physically strong, blocking point-blank punch with her bare arm even when under the effects of the Gentei Kaijo limiter, and she's proficient in Kido, conjuring Bakudo 77 without an incantation in the midst of the first Quincy invasion. Not only that, but she's extremely durable as well, surviving one of, frankly, the most fatal looking wounds in the entire series, certainly the first half of the series, long enough to receive the necessary healing. All of this is to say that despite missing out on the top 5, Rangiku is one of the Gotei 13's most stalwart and reliable defenders. However, in 5th place we have the current vice captain of the 3rd division, Izuru Kira, another well-rounded vice captain who is skilled in the various combat arts. Honestly, it was a really close call between Rangiku and Izuru, both of whom are quite similar, I think, in terms of their overall proficiency, but ultimately Izuru won out due to the frankly broken nature of his Zanpakuto Wabisuke. Though, ironically, Rangiku's Hineko presents the perfect counter to that blade's ability. Before we get to that though, Izuru has been shown to be a skilled swordsman, but also a Kido expert. Having once been a member of the 4th Division, Izuru is a very capable spellcaster, and is skilled enough in Kaido as well to save Rangiku's life when she was nearly killed by Aion. Not only that, but Izuru will freely utilise Kido on the battlefield as a part of his varied arsenal, conjuring both Hado and Bakudo without incantation. In some ways, Izuru feels like a stronger, more well-defined version of Hinamori. While Hinamori likely commands a more advanced skill over Kido, the art of Kido itself, Izuru's Zanpakuto is just far, far stronger. And speaking of which, Wabisuke is one of the series' deadliest Zanpakuto, doubling the weight of whatever it cuts again and again, until the target is forced to bow their head before Izuru, allowing him to deliver the finishing blow in gruesome detail. Having been rescued and subsequently resurrected by Mayuri after having his side obliterated by Bazby, Izuru is back. And hey, I guess sustaining and surviving an injury of that caliber gives him another thing in common with Rangiku. Just missing out on the top 3, we have the vice captain of the 11th Division, Madarame Ikkaku, freshly promoted after the Thousand Year Blood War arc and Yachiru's disappearance. Honestly, I was torn as to whether or not Ikkaku deserved to make the podium, but ultimately I settled on 4th for one major reason. His broken bankai is a huge downgrade over his previous power, and dramatically lowers his overall ceiling, and to be honest, it kind of feels as though he may as well not have bankai at all anymore. Despite being one of the Gotei 13's most fearsome, storied and skilled fighters, Ikkaku effectively losing Ryumon Hozakimaru is a huge and, in my opinion, slightly unfair blow to his arsenal. Seriously, no one else who uses bankai in the series suffers from the same kind of dramatic blowback as Ikkaku, which does kind of make me wonder why he'd bother using it at all. Of course, Ikkaku has no skill in Kido whatsoever, but makes up for it by being essentially a master of the other 3 arts. His skill in Zanjutsu is immense, as he overwhelms enemies with his unique, bespoke fighting style, wielding both his sword and his scabbard in battle at the same time, while also possessing incredible skill as a polearm wielder too when in Shikai. Ikkaku's Hakuda skills are also savage and brutal, and just what you'd expect from one of the 11th Division's foremost warriors. And to top it all off, Ikkaku displays incredible endurance, which again you would expect from a character who willingly launches himself into battle as though it were a sport. If Ikkaku's bankai were still intact by the end of the series, I think he would take the 3rd place spot, but sadly for him, the current 3rd place spot possesses a power that puts them above the majority of the vice captains automatically, to the point where I think anyone without a bankai falls short. And well, Ikkaku may as well be missing one. Here's hoping he finds a way to repair it fully in the future, beyond the hack job Akon was forced to try and do. And so in 3rd place we have a character who I think they're a vice captain at the end of the series, but that's none other than Mashiro Kuna, the super vice captain of the 9th Division, which feels like a made-up position, but no, she really does have a special badge and everything, likely done just to placate her. Now again, we haven't seen a lot from Mashiro over the course of the series, but we know that she is immensely skilled in Hakuda. In terms of fighting purely with her hands and feet, she's likely the most adept fighter on this list. But of course there is more to her than just that, to the point where it feels as though she doesn't even need to use her Zanpakuto, Holification. Mashiro is uniquely positioned on the list as the only Vizard vice captain currently, and it's this power that, at least in my opinion, places her handily above the majority of vice captains, especially those that don't have bankai. The mere act of using holification successfully grants the wielder an enormous boost in strength, similar to the jump found by using bankai, massively increasing the holified Shinigami's speed, endurance, and physical strength. On top of this, they also gain access to certain hollow abilities, with Mashiro capable of using things like Sero too. Now, while Mashiro is able to remain hollofied for a very long time, it turned out that she hadn't quite tested that theory when under duress, and her mask broke very quickly in a battle situation. But even still, She's absolutely one of the strongest in this lineup. However, after everything, the top 2 spots on this list were always pretty clear to me from the get-go. And so in second place, we have the actual, I guess, non-super vice captain of the 9th Division, Shuhei Hisagi, the everyman Shinigami who, despite his popularity, Kubo apparently hates more than anything else in life. Before Hisagi became little more than a persistent punching bag, however, he demonstrated incredible skill. In my opinion, Hisagi is the ultimate version of the jack-of-all-trades characters that we've discussed previously, found in the likes of Rangiku and Izuru. In his battles with Findor, Ion, and of course Tosen, Hisagi displayed incredible swordsmanship, Kido proficiency, and a remarkable endurance, surviving being crushed by the gigantic Chimera beast, and being slashed and stabbed by a hollow-fied Tosen. On top of that, Hisagi's Zanpakuto Kazushini is one of the most dangerous in the series, and certainly among the vice-captaincy. In the manga, Kazushini is shown to be wildly unpredictable to fight, with Hisagi effortlessly zipping and spinning his dual Kusarigama through the air, carving up anything they come into contact with. His deft control over the blades, as shown by how he handles the connecting chain itself in the midst of battle, is extraordinary, and from the moment he releases his Shikai against Barragan's Fraction, he's completely in control of the fight. Of course, the light novel Can't Be Your Own World expanded upon Hisagi's Kazushini in a big way, revealing that it actually has the frankly ridiculous power to keep Hisagi alive no matter the injury he sustains, so long as he has enough Ryoku left in the tank. On top of this, Hisagi's bankai, also revealed in the light novel Fushi no Kojo, is also extremely powerful, ensnaring both Hisagi and his opponent into a deadly showdown, where their lives are effectively linked by Kazushini's chain, allowing them both to survive fatal injuries, healing them continuously through their shared pool of Ryoku, meaning the fight effectively comes down to who is the greater combatant on a basic level. But even without everything added from the light novel, which only cements Hisagi's place here, he would still be one of the most powerful and skilled warriors among the vice captains, even though Kubo saw fit to beat him to a pulp every time he showed up in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. But of course, in first place, could it really have been anyone else? The current vice-captain of the 6th Division, Renji Abarai, is, as of the Hell Arc, the strongest vice-captain in the Gotei 13. So strong, in fact, that he outstrips at least half of the current captain class as well, and more than deserves that white Hayori for himself. Even before the Thousand Year Blood War arc, Renji was already one of the most powerful vice-captains around, and although he has little to no skill in Kido, he makes up for it in every other way. He's a brutal, physical, and explosive fighter, born out of the hardship of his youth and his time in the 11th Division, and his desperate goal of surpassing Byakuya Kuchiki, wielding his Zabimaru with incredible skill. But to be totally honest, we wouldn't be having this conversation were we just basing Renji's prowess off of his character before the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Yes, he was strong, he was capable, and he was basically captain level anyway on the lower end, whatever that nebulous term really means, but Renji's trajectory was completely upended by his training in the Royal Palace. Renji became so monstrously powerful as a result of his divine training that he now eclipses many of the captains, including those with hollowification. Where Kensei was thoroughly outclassed and pummeled in a physical contest by Masked Demasculine, Renji overcame that same Sternritter with ease, forcing the Quincy into his Volston dish using his bare hands, only occasionally bothering to swing his Shikai. And once faced with the superstar's true power, Renji unleashed his own true bankai, saw Zabimaru, and incinerated his enemy in the blink of an eye, to the point where it was basically effortless. Renji has never been one for complicated ability sets or complex powers. Even with his new bankai, he still just hits incredibly violently hard, but now he's gone so far beyond where he was, with Kubo giving him a frankly absurd power boost to help keep him relevant among the ballooning forces of nature that we saw in the final arc. As seen in the anime, when he battles Uryu, Renji's true bankai is unprecedented for the character, multi-layered and overwhelming in almost every way, allowing him to, at least to begin with, battle on par and even seemingly overwhelm Yhwach's heir. Renji is enormously strong, durable and skilled in virtually every way, and being given the gift of the name of his true bankai by Ichibei before forcing his Zanpakuto to submit to him once more, to respect him once again as a brother on the battlefield, rebuilding, reforging their bond greater and stronger than ever before, Renji is now one of the most powerful fighters of the Gotei 13 period, and deserves to be classed among the captains rather than his peers. Alright everyone, but that's it for my ranking of the vice captains as they stand in the Hell arc, the newest current iteration of the vice captains in the newest version of the Gotei 13. I'd love to hear thoughts about my ranking down in the comments below. Do you agree? Do our opinions align, or am I totally off base? Like I said, for the first 4 to 5 positions or so, we really don't know much of anything at all, and that is a problem that kind of plagues the current version of the Gotei 13, to be totally honest, so here is hoping we do get the chance to see much more from these characters in the future. Alright everyone, thank you so very much for watching once again. Do let me know your thoughts and your own rankings down in the comments below. Who do you think are some of the most powerful vice captains and the weakest as well? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments. Consider hitting subscribe again if you enjoyed today's video, it does make the world of difference, and check out my other channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games. Maybe give it a subscribe over there as well if you like. Again, that does help me out enormously. And as always, I want to end by saying an enormous thank you and giving a massive shout out to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon, who again make this channel possible, especially at the moment, because it really does help so much, and it does go a very long way. So once again, thank you all so very much for watching, for your continued support. It does mean the world to me. Until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.